I guess I missed that train. But yeah, I mean, there's a lot of important things that are going on, but it's going back to it, man. The people at the top want to keep the people at the bottom fighting amongst ourselves. So we watch everything that has to do with Kim Kardashian and basketball players and football players and sports and it's like our modern day
just like the Coliseum. I was just thinking that Rome was falling apart and the Caesar was losing his influence. So I need to do something. Build me a Coliseum. Let's give them games.
There's so many bigger things that are going on in the world, and I was talking. I can't remember if it was you or somebody else I was talking to. We have a lot of first world problems in the U.S. We have a lot of self-made and I call them first world problems because it's shit that people in other countries laugh about. If you watch like Al Jazeera or the BBC or any of these other foreign news networks, when they talk about the United States, it's with this kind of like goofy disdain because they're like, "What are you guys doing? Like, what are you doing?" And there's a lot of there's so many other small I say small, but there's these other news stories about these other places in the world that have it so much worse than we do. And the things that we complain about, the things that these hills that people are willing to die on shouldn't even be hills. Like we should, it's not that like some of them aren't legit arguments or legit complaints or things. It's just that in the scheme of the entire world, like, do we really need to be arguing about this? This has become such a headline. And what they do is they find headlines that rev people up. If there's anything that gets this country going, it's abortion, guns, and taxes.
And now recently the LGBTQ community. Yeah,
the drag queen stuff. LGBTQ community. And the thing is like what they show you isn't what everybody says. If you go and you look and you hear people from both, and the thing is no one listens to both sides. You have to listen to both sides of the aisle, both arguments, to understand. Because I think a good portion of, especially what we do, is I want to understand why you believe what you believe. It's so important because if your entire belief is based off of something wrong and I can correct it, or vice versa, my belief is based off of something that is just 100% proven wrong, and someone brings it to my attention, well, then you have to give it credence. You have to sit there. You might have to change the whole way you think about a specific incident or subject or even an ideology. And no one's willing to listen to the other sides. Now we just scream at each other because everyone's so emotionally charged. Maybe I'm just dead inside.
No, I mean, but
from war.
Yeah, but you're not wrong though. I think that, like I said, I don't want it to seem as though I know. Kiana had made that point about, talking about systemic racism. And like I mentioned this earlier, I don't want it to seem like anybody is discounting or invalidating issues. I do think that there's, and yes, America, we do have our issues that should be addressed. But I do think that in the grand scheme of the world, we do have issues that are first world problems that are not even a thought problem. I mean, you think about, like, for example, like the LGBTQ community, like, I look at, we talk about the LGBTQ rights and things like that here in America, and the nuances, the little bitty nuances, and the push and the affirmation. Is it equality? Is it affirmation? Is it a subservience of power? Is it a reserve? What's the word? Not subservience of power. Is it a submission of power? I mean, is it like what we talk about all these different nuances of the LGBTQ community, but then on the flip side, you look at something like, and this may sound a little whatever, but you look at overseas where something simple as they find out that you even thought about something homosexual in nature and they throw you off the building. You know what I mean? So it's like, when you look at the scale, it's like, when you talk about rights, like when we talk about the differences in rights and the differences of opinion and perspective, and I'm not saying anybody doesn't deserve rights or does deserve rights, or you should be happy because at least you're not getting thrown off a building. I'm not saying that. But I'm just saying we have to have a perspective. I think our perspective is skewed because of the nature of the world that we live in. Like I told you last week, the guy I was reading about, the little comment, he says, it's funny how Americans have the luxury of caring about things that don't matter. Where we are luxury. Yeah, we have gotten to a place where we've lived in such a lap of luxury and comfort and availability, and we can do all these different things that now we're like, oh, well, we need to do this to make it better, and we need to do this to make it better, and do this to make it better. And it's like some of the stuff is like, okay, you're pushing an envelope that doesn't even need to be opened or doesn't even exist. And I'm not saying that, you know, and once again, I'm not saying that
Yeah.
we shouldn't fight for people's abilities and rights and all that kind of stuff. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying that how far does it go? At what point do you start to work against yourself? You see what I'm saying? At one point, are you working?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, how many different types of people
Right.
are we really talking about here? Are we talking about equality, or are we
Yeah.
talking about superiority? There's a huge difference between obtaining equality, and I've said this before. I'm gonna tell you what the shittiest part of equality is. You know you're equal, and people just stop giving a shit about you. That's equality. When they
Yeah.
stop caring, when you are not in the news and you are not the biggest headline, and you just go about your day, you're equal. That's equality. If you're always in the news, if you're always having to
Right.
fight for something, you're either at the top or you're at the bottom. You know what I'm saying? You're not in that. You haven't reached
Yeah.
equality. That's what real equality is. People talk about equality between men and
Right.
women. What does that look like? Do we feel like we're equal between men and women now? I'm gonna say yes to a huge degree and no to a smaller degree. Yes, in the fact that there's really nothing in the world that a woman can not do that a man cannot do, or there's nothing that we can do that they can't do. Literally, damn near anything. But now we've crossed into this realm where we have biological men playing in women's
Yeah.
sports, and I think that's
Right.
damaging our younger
Right.
generations of women. We've literally just said to you that the patriarchy is so strong that when we get tired of our stuff, we'll just come and take your stuff too. But we'll say we're women while we
Right.
do it, and then you
Yeah.
have to accept it because now
Yeah.
we have an
That is.
accepting ideology. And I hate to use that one. That's the easiest example I can take off the top of my head right now. Another show I'd really love to talk about is this wage gap. Everyone always talks about that. No one can
Right.
really seem to prove. Because I've never ever worked in a job, and I'm
Right.
on, like, I don't know, my
Right.
50th job. Men and
Right.
women make the same amount of money,
Right.
depending on if you're a paramedic here and you're a man and a woman, we
Right.
make the exact same amount of money. There's zero discrepancies in our paychecks. Paramedics, same thing, zero discrepancies in the paycheck. And you don't see that a lot. And
Right.
you find that at, like, the corporate level where you have to negotiate wages. Is there some businesses that probably
Right.
pay women less? I'm sure there is. That pay black people
Right.
less?
Right.
Yeah, I'm sure there is. Find
Right.
those businesses, highlight those businesses. But that goes back to the systemic argument. Just because a grocery store in Southeast Louisiana
Right.
pays women less than they pay men doesn't mean that there's a
Right.
systemic problem and a
Right.
wage gap
It's
with
the
all
broad
grocery
brushing.
stores
It's the
between
broad
men and
brushing.
women.
Yeah.
That broad strip, and all of a sudden now we got
Right.
a war
Right.
on Winn-Dixie, hey, for the record, I'm
Right.
not saying
Right. No,
Winn-Dixie is
Instagram.
that's just a person
Don't
that came to
cancel us.
mind.
We're don't cancel. We're not. Yeah. Yeah. No, I agree with you.
Don't don't
I think generalizations leaves us blind. I think that we can be. It's like I used to say this all the time. If
yeah
color is all you see, you'll be forever blind. Is I think that if everything that you
yeah
do is based off of this broad brush ideology, then unfortunately you're missing out on really making the change that you want to make. I think that if we get to this place where you have to filter everything through this one lens of this particular ideology or this particular belief, then what happens is you're missing out on this whole beautiful world around you and information that could potentially help your cause. But it looks like it's like they say, let's say blessing. Well, the church used to always talk about, like, this pastor I heard, he said something like blessing. Yeah, you are. Oftentimes people miss their blessings because it comes looking like work. You know what I mean? And I
yeah
think a lot of times, in many
yeah
cases, we get too caught up in. We we want everything to affirm what we believe instead of challenging what we believe to build the cause that we want. You know what I mean? Or build the change that we want. Especially now, yeah. It changed the subject. It actually made me think about it. So recently, I don't know if you saw. I'd imagine you haven't, but there was an article, a story that came out where there's two sides of that, right? One was Stanford University. Did you hear about them? They released a list of words, like language. It's called the ELHI or something like that. It's called the uh, uh, oh shoot, something language harm something. Anyway, basically they released a list of words, phrases, and language that you can't use on campus because it could be considered offensive or et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, right? hate speech.
Hate
Right, it's a
speech.
whole
Okay,
list
I
of
got you.
words
I
that you
got you.
can and can't use on Stanford campus, and they are working to remove these phrases and words, all over the campus. But what's interesting about it is that, like, they use an example on their website, right, of the word apple, because apple apparently can be offensive to Native Americans. Um, so apparently, and like I said, I don't know all the history
Right.
behind it, but I do know that there's some correlation there. But apparently, the word apple can be offensive, depending, especially on how it's used, to Native Americans. And so, but on the flip side, Apple is also a company that makes computers. And so there's the argument of like, we should just refrain from using that because it could be translated as offensive, or it could be, not offensive. And like, they didn't mention the fact that apple is a fruit. So if I want, could I have an apple? But here's the interesting part. So they use that like as an example. But here's the thing. That that's not actually even on their list. Right? Right. But what is on the
Really?
list, you ready for this one, Zach? You know what is on the list? American. The word
Ooh.
American is on
Okay.
their list of words that you should not use because it could be offensive because it's exclusive. Because typically, when you say American, it's only speaking about North America and U.S. So you should say U.S. citizen as to not exclude South and North America and all the other parts of America or Native American. So they're saying you shouldn't use the word America because it can be offensive or it's exclusive. It's not inclusive of all the other Americas. Which I was like, wow. So in America, you can't use America or American at Stanford because because it's exclusive.
That's and this is what's and
And
this
that's
is
an
the stuff
Ivy
that our higher
League, right? That's
education needs
Ivy
to
League
this is
education.
and this
I'll be honest with you. I'm like,
Ivy
yo,
League.
okay,
Yeah.
y'all are, because obviously, okay, racial slurs, all that kind of stuff. I mean, we've talked about this where, to be honest with you, if there's if you are not physically harming me or doing anything to hurt me, hinder me, limit me, any of that kind of stuff, honestly, I can care what you think about me.
Yeah.
I mean, you could have, like we were talking about this earlier, like you could have a bunch of, the reality is you got a bunch of folks who think a bunch of black people, a bunch of Negroes, you know what I'm saying? But guess what? That doesn't bother
Mm-hmm.
me. Okay, that's fine. You can feel that way all you
Yeah.
want. As long as you are not in my space hindering me or my family and that kind of stuff, you can say what you want. You know what I mean? It's kind of like the old adage,
Yeah.
sticks and stones and break your bones, but words never hurt you. Not saying words don't hurt because they can, but it's saying that when we talk about speech and the ability to express your opinions, and by law, so this leads me to my other thing. There was a recent situation where these two Asian people of Asian descent, to be more specific, were in a restaurant recording themselves like eating something or whatever. And apparently there was a guy in the background.
Mm-hmm.
I've yet to be able to really see the video, but apparently there was a guy in the background who he came at them like, well, not came at them, but he was in the background calling them all types of, derogatory terms and, racial terms or whatever the case is, and was just being a jerk, basically. He didn't physically do anything, but he was in the background just, saying all kind of stuff. And I have not seen the video myself, but that's what I've read in the article. Well, he was arrested. After the video I guess the video went up. I'm still getting the timelines, but apparently the video went viral, and he ended up getting arrested for his racial tirade or whatever the case is. Um, and and yeah, so you see the face you're making, because like on one hand, I get it from a perspective of, yeah, no, you shouldn't act like that. If the charge is
Yeah.
disturbing the peace, you know what I mean, disorderly conduct, okay, we have
I
something. But if the charge is being a jerk,
yeah, like in a reasonable if you're if you're looking at it from
right,
a reasonable perspective, he's not right in that. There's no way you can say that
right,
he's right
correct,
in that situation. All right. However, for a criminal charge, unless he's inciting people
Right.
to violence or, directly going up to their table, and the best you can
Right.
hope for is a
Right.
disturbing
Disorderly
peace. I mean, that's about as
conduct,
far as
something
it'll
like that.
probably go,
Right.
which is a misdemeanor, slap on the wrist. Yeah, you know. But I can tell you what, by him going viral and being on the internet, that's probably more of a punishment
Yeah.
nowadays, because now everybody knows who you are, man. Now everybody knows who you are. You can actually
Just
do
putting
more
them on the
damage to people now by
internet.
just
Yeah.
getting their pictures, putting them on the internet, man. You can
Yeah.
ruin
Yeah.
somebody's life that way. Me and you kind of take a risk getting on the internet,
Right.
talking about the way we think about things. It's real
Right.
easy for someone to just rip a
Right.
video, and put it out
Yeah.
there, spin our words, take things out of context or stuff like that. The internet's a righteous place, man. Like you get on the internet and people just tear you to shreds over real things and made up non-existent things.
All the
You see it on
time.
posts and all the time, man. If you ever scroll through TikTok, if you want to waste about an hour of your life a day, just read comments.
Yeah.
Don't even watch the videos.
The comments are
Just read the
hilarious. People
comments. Like,
people say some
dude,
it's crazy. People say some wild
the
stuff
stuff
on the
people
internet,
say.
man.
So you remember WWL-TV, right?
Yeah.
The news network down in New Orleans, right? They have a Facebook page. I only follow it because the comments have
Yes.
100% never let me down for any reason, because it doesn't matter what the article is about. What the article is about. I think the last one I saw was about the all the tires they found out in New Orleans East. They had like this stock, like a
Right.
dumping ground of rubberized tires. And I read through those comments for like 45 minutes of my life, just watching them, because it went from talking about these tires to being racist to being to people saying, blaming it on Donald Trump, blaming it on the Democrats, but it went political.
Yeah.
It's fucking
Yeah.
tires, and somehow
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
that's where we're at. Like people just want to
Yeah.
they want to speak their minds, man. I don't know. I tell people all the time, like sometimes I'm really embarrassed
Yeah.
to be an American. When people ask me about, when I was flying back in the country this last time, I was on a flight from
Yep. Hey, Wes in the house. What's
Amsterdam to
up, man?
Dubai.
Best East and Jackson in the house too. I just realized we got people
What's
jumping in. Big Wes in the house. What's up, boy?
Yeah, I was flying, and this Indian guy sat next to me. Him and his wife, he's a doctor. Apparently, we got to talking a little bit, and then like out of nowhere, he like he got like super aggressive with me. He's like, "Hey, man, how's Joe Biden working out for you?" I was like,
Right.
It depends on what you feel like working out is. He's like, well, I think he's doing a great idea. And I straight up told this guy, like, I don't give a fuck what you think. You don't even live in the United States. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, your opinion on what's going on in my country doesn't mean shit to me because you don't live there. So I don't care what you think. How's India doing right now? How's that going for you, buddy? Because they're not doing too well. You know what I'm saying? Like, let's not throw stones in a glass house here. I don't ask random people in random countries how they feel about stuff. When I was in Norway, not one person asked me about politics. You know what I'm saying? Like, I just feel like it's such a sensitive subject that I would never approach it with a complete stranger in that way. Especially, I don't know jack shit about what's going on in Norway right now. I didn't know when I got there. I just knew I was there to drink beer and go to a bunch of museums. Mission accomplished. But I found that really crazy that this dude, like out of nowhere, just like, hey, I think your president's doing a really good job. And I'm like, why do you think that? Had I been in a better state of mind, I had been flying for 2 days, I probably would have been like, why don't you go ahead and why don't you sign this up for me? Why don't you tell me why you think he's having a good idea? And stuff like that. But we have the luxury of making problems, having problems with things that other people don't even have. So I think that's a perspective wise for me. That's how I kind of keep everything that's going on in the United States in perspective. Like, is this as big of a problem as the media is making it? That's that's a whole.
We have to look past the magnifying glass.
Talk about just how bad the media, and how easy it is to make one incident look like it's affecting the entire country. What was that most recent school shooting they had? What was it? Uvalde?
Yeah, Uvalde shooting
down in Texas, right? it was crazy. It's not crazy, but when you look at the mindset, I
Right.
mean, how many schools are in the
Mm.
United States? Hundreds of thousands, right? There's got to be,
Right.
100,000 schools. One school has a school shooting, and people across the
Right.
country aren't sending their kids into school.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Think about that mindset. One school out of several 100,000. I mean, I don't even know exactly how many schools
Right.
there are
Right.
from all the ages
Right.
and all the public and private and institutions and stuff like that. But think about how many schools are probably in the
Right.
United States, how many students there are. You have one school shooting in Texas, and someone in
Right.
Florida doesn't want to send their kid to
Right.
school.
Right.
Think about how
Yeah.
fast the media
Yeah.
gets a bad incident throughout the entire
Right.
country, throughout the entire world. And that mass media, mass
Right.
panic has way
Right.
more effect than actual issues that were having. I'm not saying that school shootings are not an issue. I'm just
Right.
saying that one incident
Right.
was spread like wildfire to the point where people that weren't even directly
Right.
involved couldn't even be involved. Never
If
would
it
have
wasn't
even
for
known
the
it
media,
happened
yeah.
30, 40 years ago until
Right.
the nightly news 2 days later won't send their kids to
Right.
school because they're afraid that their school in southern
Right.
Florida is going to have the same
And then
incident
I
that
think,
happened in Texas.
right, and I think
You know what I'm saying?
one of the
That
things
fast.
that really is tough is in those type of situations, it's always spun to fit an agenda. You know what I mean? It's always spun. It's never solely focused on the issue of the person, of the people, of the children, like that's a horrible thing to happen. And it's like the fact that all the focus is not on the families. It's not on the children. It's all about like either A, gun control or why we need guns. You know what I mean? It's either should we have security in schools? Should we not have security in schools? And it's like, I get it, but it's just like, can we take 2 seconds? Because I mean, you're talking about literally within 24 hours of that happening, folks were on there talking heads were up there talking about, gun control or why we need more guns and da 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 da. And it's like, bro, what? Can we let it breathe? Can we just let it breathe for 2 seconds? Can we give these people at least a week to deal with what just happened? You know what I mean? Like, but no, that frustrates me, because I hate when tragedy is turned into political agenda. I hate that because it's like,
yeah.
and I get it. I understand that everything we talk about is connected and needs to be addressed. And is this a symptom of a greater issue? I get all of that. But I think that there needs to be there's a certain level of decency and respect. Like, bro, when you have a tragedy, let's take a second to just let's breathe on the tragedy. Let's let it breathe. Let's let people process this. And here's the thing, this is a tragedy, an isolated tragedy. Once again, we can't get into the broad brush mentality because immediately it's like, oh, we had this school shooting. Oh, that's so terrible. Let's bring up all these other school shootings that have happened in the last 20 years. Let's talk about all this over here. Let's talk about the gun violence. No. Let's just say this tragedy happened in Texas. Send your prayers, send your donations, send your support. Remember the days when they used to remember they used to do the moment of silence. Let's have a moment of silence for the lives we lost. And then guess what? Now moving on into other news or other stories that are going on. Not we're gonna sit here and debate our political opinion and agenda. You're the news. You're supposed to tell us what's going on, not give your opinions, not give your perspectives, not give your agendas. And then that's what I think frustrates me a lot.
Yeah, gone are the days where you turn on the news, you learn what has happened,
right,
and then you form your own opinion about it. You know what I'm saying? Or if it's an opinionated thing, like there's really no way to form an opinion on something that's happened except from an outside point of view on, man, that sucks, as opposed to like, man, that. But now, like, I watch the news and I'm like,
right, yeah. Happen? You don't even know what to believe nowadays. Like, it's so crazy. So here, okay, all right. Side note. So here's a little conspiracy moment. You ready for this? Okay. So here's what's interesting, right? So, do you remember that there was and this is, like I said, they may try to come cancel us, but it's just something I heard, and I'm just, we're just talking. Here we go.
Here we go.
All right. No, but check this out. Now. So did you hear about, do you remember there was the shooting a while back over at the grocery store? and it was in like it was what was it? Shoot, it escaped me. Now it wasn't in New York.
Was it in New
It was in
York?
dang, I don't have my computer in front of me. Anyway, so there was a mass shooting, which I did find this as here's another thing. I found out that if you go in the articles over the last couple of years, so they have now begun to label any shooting as a mass shooting. Any shooting where like multiple rounds are fired in any public vicinity, they're calling a mass shooting. Now, I noticed that I was
Mass
reading
shooting.
articles, and I noticed the language
And you bump the
changed
numbers up.
to mass shooting. What was normally drive by over there off 25th or whatever down there in New Orleans in the 7th Ward has now become a
Yeah.
mass shooting, which I think that is an interesting topic there because that the change of language. But I was, so this is, like I said, this is conspiracy moment, but here's what's interesting. So I heard the other day that, so in the grocery store, there was a shooting in the grocery store, and like 8 people died, and it's a tragic event, right? And then I found out later on, and like I said, I'm not there. It's just me sharing the information. One of the victims in the grocery store was this black guy, right? And this particular guy, supposedly, allegedly, had just been on a local TV show or a local show for talking about he redid or fixed the water engine.
Created.
And he had actually done it.
Yeah. Oh no, I that
Was it
wasn't.
New York?
I think that
Okay,
was
it might have been. I'm thinking New
I
York.
remember when that happened.
Buffalo.
And I remember when that article came out.
I think it's in Buffalo.
And there was actually
so
Buffalo. There was a sip. And when you look back at
doesn't even live in Buffalo.
that shooter doesn't even live anywhere near Buffalo. He drove like 2 or 3 hours out of his way to shoot at that specific grocery store where that specific guy.
Yeah.
He was a retired.
Retired police officer. Right? He had just did the water. Yeah, he was a retired police perfected the engine. Actually, did it in the car. He actually did it in his vehicle or something, and was talking about it. And
yep. Oh, it runs.
And it works.
It 100% works. Yeah.
Well, right. And then fast forward, he happens to be in the grocery store for the shooter that lived 3 hours away to a random grocery store in Buffalo. Like, it wasn't like a major grocery store. It was like an Albertsons, or or like a local store. And then when you okay, so then we talk about, you look at the history and look at stuff now, because you remember back in the 70s and 60s or 80s or one or two, you had the dude who originally had that water engine who conveniently came to an untimely demise.
He died.
And
yeah, if you look at a lot of these incidents, there's a lot of things that don't make there's little tiny puzzle pieces that people and when you start talking about it, they like to use that word conspiracy theorist. I'm not a conspiracy theorist. I have questions. There's a lot of major the Las Vegas shooting. Man, that was out of the news real fast.
Wait, what was it saying?
Say
it again real quick.
What a great the Las Vegas.
Oh yeah, Vegas.
Remember the one in Las Vegas a couple of years back, where some 60-year-old guy had like 15 guns, and he shot up all these people at I think it was a country music concert. Those are in the news. It was big news, and then when the story started falling apart, it disappeared. There's little puzzle pieces, and I just have questions. I'm not saying that. I mean, obviously the shooting happened, but for me, it doesn't add up. It just something like that just doesn't add up. The Uvalde shooting. If you look at the weapon that the kid had, he had like a $2,500 Daniel Defense, like a loaded out rifle. You know what I'm saying? Look, like that kid did not look like he knew jack about a weapon like that. Why that gun? Why that gun, not a handgun or something else? But it specifically had to be a very, very expensive version.
Yeah, it was high grade. You're talking about high grade. It's weird, like when you like I said, you hate to So on one hand, you hate to say like, oh my gosh, this is government conspiracy. They're out here doing X, Y, and Z.
Mm-hmm.
But on the flip side, you cannot discount the fact that the government has definitely done things like awful things in the past for their own personal agendas behind the scenes. So
as someone who's worked for the government off and on for the last 15 years, I don't trust the government.
Right.
All right. You know what I'm saying? I'm
Right.
probably already on the list. The reason they don't come get me is they know where I am every
My bad, I
single
didn't
day.
mean to cut you off, but yeah, and I probably, spared you
No,
before you got too deep. But no, what's interesting? I found out, they changed the domestic terrorism definition.
yeah. So we had an issue with that about 6 months ago. Because they put basically every symbol from the American Revolution on there, all your patriotic, your Betsy Ross flag, your don't tread on me symbols, anybody who has a 3%er tattoo, which if you're a 3%er, you shouldn't advertise it. That's kind of the whole point, but that's it's a whole different subject. But basically anything patriotic, which I have about 4 of those on my arm right now. No, we actually had one of our guys get questioned by the FBI here in Iraq because he had a 3%er tattoo. I mean, he has a whole sleeve of patriotic stuff. We're all veterans. Most of us are veterans here. Most of us fought in either one or both of the conflicts over the last 20 years. So if anybody gets to rock any of that stuff, we get to rock it. If I want to put an American flag across my face, I'm going to do it. I love my country. I spilled blood for my country. And anybody else who has anything to say about it can kiss my ass. But no, I know exactly what you're saying, and it's funny that you brought that up. Because I was talking about that the other day with somebody. I was like, what an easy way to make all the people that you just used over the last 20 years. You trained a whole generation of small unit fighters. How do you get everybody to look at them differently? Well, now they're domestic terrorists because they know how to conduct small unit warfare.
Yeah, that's
I think it's very interesting. I think this all goes back to the people at the top want to keep the people at the bottom scared of each other.
Because I can tell you right now, because I was like, when I first heard that they had changed the code that classified domestic terrorism and homeland security and all that stuff, and I went and read it, and it said, and not only did it say that, it also would have added anybody who talks about like the election and anybody who holds any view of like the January 6th insurrection and that stuff. Like I was like, whoa, now, or anybody who even like thinks that way, like that they're on the list. You on the domestic terrorism list,
man.
Like that. Why? Like
I'm telling you, dude. If you try to question, you try to question anything. And the thing is, I just have questions. If you can answer my questions in a logical way, and I'll let it go. Dude, for years, everybody thought it was a conspiracy that Lee Harvey Oswald wasn't, something had to do with the CIA.
Yeah.
The documents they just released confirmed that he worked with the
that's
CIA.
crazy. Yeah, that's wild.
Before the assassination.
That JFK stuff,
you know what I'm saying?
man.
So it's only a conspiracy. It's only a conspiracy until it's proven true. You want to take it back even further. I'm going to tell you, the first time I really thought that the government would do something crazy, like in our modern era, okay? You remember the shooting in Newtown, Connecticut? Okay. Nobody talks about it anymore. Even when they have gun control debates, they don't talk. That was like the worst school shooting they had since Columbine. And it was all like young children. Dude, they don't talk about it. There's no moment of silence like like we do for September 11th or some of these other incidents that have happened. Same thing with the Las Vegas shooting. There's no memorial every year. They don't talk about the people that died. There's like, there's a significant amount of people that were killed during that event. Like, why do we blast this in the news for 6 months and then we just don't ever want to talk it now? And it has to do with the issues that we're talking in the news. These are old and good issues to look back at. But it's like once people start asking enough questions about it, it just goes away. I think Alex Jones, that dude, like, if you ever want to have a good laugh, watch some Alex Jones.
He
just lost a lawsuit because
he had to pay like $400 million or something like that. Yeah, and it's like, because he was spreading information that apparently endangered, the families, and I saw that. And did you hear him in the courtroom? That joker said, they said, so you're alleging that this is like some sex trafficking, whatever cases. He said, oh yeah, you're talking about like the Clinton administration when they did this, and they were like,
yeah,
sir,
yeah.
So
but that makes you think: do people like him have the answer? Do he
Right,
or
of
some of
course.
the? I'm not saying
Yeah.
everything he says or believes.
He
Because I've,
wild.
I've
Yeah,
I've watched
that
some
boy,
stuff and
yeah, he's out there.
it's wild. It's wild. But that doesn't mean that he's not speaking the truth about certain things. You know, we have to separate. We need in the best way to discredit conspiracy theorists is to make them look
Well, it's like
even crazier than what they really are. I don't think that's an
yeah,
act. I think he really is that
yeah,
crazy.
yeah,
But like, there's other
yeah. Well,
people
it's
out there
like this,
that speak on these things, and people are like,
right?
"You're
Well, it's
conspiracy.
like
You're
this. It's like this.
crazy,
What
man."
you cannot disprove, you discredit. That's how you would do it. Is if I can't prove that you're wrong, I can't unequivocally prove you're wrong. So what I have to do is disprove your
Mm-hmm.
credibility. I mean, it's the same. It's an age old. It's the age old thing in a debate, right? If I can't prove you or beat you or defeat you with factual information, then what do? I assassinate your character. Yeah, I mean, I come after you as a person. I come after
Absolutely.
your personal opinions or choices or some of those things, and I deflect from the actual issue themselves. You see that in the political debates all the time. You know, instead of actually talking about the issues and saying,
Mm-hmm.
well, X, Y, and Z, we'll say, well, I'm pretty sure that you in 1985, didn't you do D? And it's like, well, yeah,
Yeah.
I did or I didn't.
Yeah.
Oh, so now you're telling us about X, Y, and Z, but you did A, B, and C, you know, and it's like you're deflecting from the issue, and that's what we do, and so it's all distraction. And when you have people who are considered conspiracy theorists, it's so interesting because it's like nowadays, it's like when you come to conspiracy theorists, here's my thoughts, right? When you come to conspiracy theories, it used to be that one person who was the dude on the side of the road, the engineer, this is that, and this is that, and it was crazy. You had that one or two guys that were just like out there, UFOs and probes and all kind of stuff, right? But now, conspiracy has been the label that has been placed on anybody that we disagree with. So it's like, or anything that causes the slightest bit of cognitive dissonance, we label it as conspiracy because then we don't have to pay attention to it. It gives us an excuse to
Yep.
ignore it. It
Oh,
gives us a reason. It's a powerful
it's a
language
powerful
is a
weapon.
powerful weapon. If you get labeled a conspiracy theorist, what you're saying could absolutely be true. But because it's labeled conspiracy,
Yeah.
because yeah, you're just a conspiracy theorist. Like somebody asked me the other day if I was a conspiracy theorist because we were talking about some like COVID stuff and just information and stuff. And like they asked me, so are you a conspiracy
Yeah.
theorist? I said, well, no, I'm a realist. And my perspective is if it looked like a duck, walks like a duck, quacks like a duck, it's got feathers like a duck, I look at it and I see a bill like a duck, then it makes me question this might be a duck. And I won't even say 100% that it is a duck, but
Might
I'm
be duck.
looking at it, I'm listening to it, I'm smelling it. Everything about this says this might be a duck. But if you tell me, and then you're
Oh yeah.
telling
100.
me though,
100%.
that's just conspiracy
100.
because all the media and everybody knows it's a chicken. Okay, I feel you. I'm not saying that it ain't a chicken. I'm just saying I've never seen a chicken with webbed feet. You know what I'm saying? Like, you know what I'm saying? I've never seen a chicken with a flat bill. Nah, I promise you, bro, it's a chicken.
Yeah. Well, go back. Roll back to the very beginning, man. We were talking about broad strokes, okay, and reaching. Now, all you have to do when you don't agree with somebody or you don't want to discuss anything or give credence to anybody who
Right,
has questions about an incident or an idea or anything that's going on is you label them a conspiracy theorist. And right there, you've already taken half the battle away from yourself defending that position. Everybody else is going to do
right,
it for you. Go back to
right,
COVID. Government didn't have to do most
right,
of the stuff. Everybody was fighting each other.
right,
People were literally
right,
fighting each other over masks, over vaccines, over stuff like that. You know, and once again, you know, they related vaccines to racism. They related
right.
masks to racism. You know,
Yeah,
you're moving down so many wickets now that you're taking credit. And we talked about it before in another one. When you
yeah,
start weaponizing ideology and overusing it, almost crying wolf, less people can get behind your
right,
message, even if it is a solid message, just because they're so jaded from all the other BS
right,
that's going on around that thing. You know what I'm saying? And so by labeling everybody a conspiracy, by labeling something as systemic, by labeling
Right.
something as anything else than something you want to deal with,
Right. Or you
you don't
put
have to deal with anymore. People
or
at the top don't have to
or
deal with
you
it
put a
anymore.
phobia behind it. You put an obia behind it,
Yeah.
xenophobia, homophobia, transphobia. You put a phobia behind it, and all of a sudden now, it doesn't matter what you're saying. Clearly, it's transphobic, or clearly it's homophobic, or clearly it's xenophobic, or clearly it's alt right, or or alt left, or whatever the case is. It's like at the end of the day, the reality is that we live in such big chunks that we miss the nuances that really are the truth. Like if you dig into the depths, if you dig
Yeah.
down into the depths of reality and you break down all the issues, cultural, social, personal, political, it really breaks down to somewhere amidst all of that. It's the one thing that you don't want to look at that's probably the truth. In most cases,
Yeah.
it's the thing you don't
100%.
want to confront. That's the truth. Like, I always say this when I teach. I tell people all the time, I say,
Yeah.
listen, people always use the phrase, the truth hurts. And I say, well, yeah, but the truth only hurts when you're living a lie. Because the truth is
Yeah.
confronting the lie that's within you. And so what happens is that when you're confronted with truth, it hurts because it's digging in, it conflicts with the lie that is embedded in your soul. So that truth hits you and you, I don't like that. That hurts because guess what? It's oil and water. It don't mix. You can't mix truth and lies. You'll try to because you got a lot of lies that are laced with truth. But at the end of the day, it can't. At the
Yeah.
end of the day, it can't bond and it can't stand. And over time, you're gonna have to reject one or the other. You're either gonna reject the lie or you're gonna reject the
Hmm.
truth. Either way, you can't have both because you'll be in constant conflict.
Yeah. No, no, you're 100% correct that people don't want to hear the truth. Well, they don't even want to. They don't. It's not that they don't want to hear the truth. They just don't want to be
Right.
wrong. People can't handle being wrong. You can go back into talking about how people don't have coping mechanisms anymore. People aren't developing the necessary skills it takes to be an adult, which is you have to cope with failure and you have to cope with being wrong because
Right.
you're going to be wrong a lot. All right, you're going to learn something new every day. You know, I was having a conversation with a fellow paramedic here. He's a little old, well, he's a lot older than
Right.
me. He's like got about 20 years on me. Just being alive, but also like 20 years as being a paramedic. And I was just, sitting there telling him, he's like, dude, I've been doing this job for almost 35 years. 35 years. He's like, I still learn stuff. I was like, yeah, you get to a point in your career where you feel like you know everything because you get good, a lot of repetition, proficiency at things through volume. But you always learn something new. And, I related it to the fact that I was watching we were doing some training here. We talked about deep water,
Right.
some deep water stuff up in like the North Atlantic Ocean where they go to the bottom and
Yeah.
like work on these rigs or whatever. Some dude was down on, they use these umbilicals that connect to their suits that have like heats their suits because it's like, it's freezing cold down there and gives them oxygen. Well, something happened to the ship and it pulled. He got stuck on the underwater rig. It ripped his umbilical. He's without oxygen for 35 minutes. Now, me, knowing what I know about medicine, I was like, well, he's brain dead. Even if he's still alive, he's been without oxygen for 30 minutes. There's no way he's alive. Well, no, he survived, made a full recovery, no deficits. I didn't know why, and then I had a friend there who was a diving paramedic and he explained it, and I could have been like, nah, fuck that. I know more than you because I've been
Right.
doing my job for just as long as you have. I don't have his skill set, so my peer sat there and he educated me on
Right.
something that I had no idea about the exact reasons why this dude had a really good chance of not only surviving that 35 minutes,
Right.
but probably even longer, completely devoid of oxygen, because his body was so
Right.
frozen and so everything in the processes in his body
Right.
was so slowed down, that he he was without
Right.
oxygen, but
Moving
he had oxygen
and
because
slower. Right.
nothing was happening in his body. He was so cold. And there's a lot more scientific stuff that goes into it, but there's a short of it. And it would have been really easy
Right.
to be upset that I was
Right.
wrong, that
Right.
someone was teaching me something new. But it wasn't. I like to learn new things. If I'm wrong about something, but you have to. The thing is you
Right.
have to prove to me that I'm wrong. You can't just tell me that I'm
Right.
wrong because I said so.
Right.
Like if I'm wrong,
Right.
then well, teach me. You know, I don't want to be
Right.
wrong about it. So if I'm wrong, then make me right about it. And I think that can be applied to a lot
Right.
of issues that we're having. Broad stroking a lot of stuff. You know, you pointed out, hey, if you see something that is systemic or wrong,
Right.
let's go fight it together. But broad stroking everything in that
Right.
area
Right.
as wrong
Right.
doesn't solve the
Right.
problem.
It's like if you have,
Risk.
it's like you have a gas leak. Okay, clearly we have a gas leak somewhere, and people are getting sick. The answer is not to blow up the town. You know what I mean? Like that's not the answer. You know
Nope.
what I mean? Like the
Yeah,
answer is
yeah.
not to blow up the town, or like if there's a fly in the room, the answer is not a shotgun. You know what I mean? Like, you know, it's like it's like we can't live like that, or else what we'll end up doing is destroying everything, and we still may not be get rid of the issue. You know, but anyway, hey, bro, we are at an hour, man. We at that 60-minute mark. So let's jump off here, man, and we will reconvene. Well, actually, we'll probably reconvene in the new year because 20 this weekend's New Year's, isn't it?
So, yeah, well, let's try to shoot for next Wednesday.
Yeah, yeah,
And stuff like that. That should work out. And we'll figure it out. And you know, hey everybody, thanks for joining in. Those who stuck around to the end. This is our show, Talking Points. We have a YouTube channel that's sort of up and running now, so we're trying to get that all figured out. And once I figure out how to do technology,
right, exactly.
But right now it's here and there, and we'll start getting all the information out to everybody. We'll try to grow the show. I think eventually we would like to bring some other people on, maybe have like a three-way talk.
We gotta do that, yeah.
Figure out how to do that stuff. Yeah, I think that'd be really cool. And I think in the future, I'm going to start. I have a lot of guys here, a lot of older guys that have been through a lot of stuff in a lot of different countries. And I think it'd be real cool to get their perspective on some of the things off their experience. So I might do some shorter interviews. And if we can figure out how to do the three-way chat, we can put them in a separate room. And they can sit in the room with me.
We'll figure that. I'll probably
I think
maybe
cool
have them in the room, or you could do like a man on the street kind of thing. You know what I mean? As you're walking around, maybe go record them and post them.
Yeah,
we'll work it out.
Yeah, I think that'd be cool. But sit down and post them like that. But yeah, check out our YouTube channel, Talking Points. Subscribe. There's gonna be a lot more content coming out. Reese the Poet, me Zero Foxtrot, and we're gonna get a lot more information. We're gonna get a lot more topics, and we'll try to do a better job of.
I know so much stuff about so many talking points.
Everything kind of spirals.
Right, exactly.
Spirals.
Yep.
So many talking points.
All right, Joe.
All right, Reese. It was good to see you, man.
Yes, sir.
I'll see you soon.